Welcome. Now that the leveling portion of the dungeon series is complete, we're left with the endgame dungeons, otherwise known as 60 dungeons. For the most part, in these dungeons, the pulls are very straightforward. There's not that same AoE farming potential that you had during the leveling dungeons until your party outgears all the content. So to keep things more useful here, let me show you my personal favorite farm, which is the 2-man Stratholme farm. Now, as a bit of a throwback to my earlier videos, I'll start by showing you some of the clips of me performing very poorly. Now, that pull may have looked okay on the surface as I'm about to kind of get out of here and, oh yeah, it looks like I'm nice and safe. But I defied the cardinal rule, which is I did not focus my attention on the casters in that pull. So now you're going to see he's getting hit with Shadow Bolts. This is going to interrupt Blizzard. This is going to make the damage less per cast of Blizzard. And essentially what's going to happen here is this pull is going to get drawn out because of that. If you've been watching this series, you know I emphasize always hit the casters. It's the number one thing anyone can do at any time. Casters are always the high prio targets. So to defy that rule is a little embarrassing, to be honest with you. I never would normally show a clip like this. It's just so bad. I'm using all of my cooldowns, and it's all because of that. All I had to do was hit the casters. This pull goes 10 times smoother. I just whiffed it. What can you do? All right, on to pull number 2. Now you'll notice the theme here is that we're just going to constantly be line of sighting. Makes these pulls a lot easier. You can pretty much always come back to where you were. That way you don't have to be pushing forward and risking pulling pats and stuff. That being said, of course, on this particular clip, everything looks good for a little while, and then my awareness starts to slip, and I do end up pulling a patrol. You can see we have a ghoul and a citizen coming our way. Now, we back way far enough from the ghoul, and I end up pulling aggro on everything. It's no problem. You see my mage buddy's running away right now because he sees that citizen, and he's like, I can't do anything, dude. So I end up pulling it with Fiery Blaze because that's what's enchanted on my weapon. I do a lot of random AoEs. No reason to pull that mob. You know, if I didn't have Egan's Blaster here, that actually could have been a wipe. Luckily, this one item makes the entire run 10 times easier to do, because a lot of times these little citizens will spawn sort of randomly in the middle of the road while you're in the middle of doing stuff. And having that blaster makes it 10 times easier. I'll link that in the description if you're not familiar with that quest. So the margin for error is pretty slim in here, and the more mistakes you make, the longer it will take you to get through the run. Another time increase is going to be the Abominations. They have a lot of health, and with just 2 of you and 1 of you being a prot pally, they take a while to down. I have considered switching to like a 2-hander or something for them, but you can see they hit pretty hard. Now, one of the things that I could be doing here is actually just getting initial threat and then kiting myself. Because I didn't do that, he was able to hit me with the knockback, and now you'll see my mage friend is going to be the one kiting. And I'm going to keep getting hit with the knockback just by being in melee, so he's essentially constantly resetting my threat, and the mage is always on top threat. So that's something to consider whether or not you should be kiting, or if in this case it works out fine either way. Yet again, I could switch to a 2-hander here, but I'm still not playing my best. This is not my best run, to be honest with you. So moving forward, we've got a couple more LOS pulls up ahead. This is another 2-pull that I like to do, and I also whiff this one. That looks like a fine pull and all, but the real thing that you have to do here is you pull the left group first. You see those casters back there. I have to get those into line of sight, like right around the same time that I'm going to pull the other group. Instead, what I did was I pulled both of them at the exact same time. You saw that one group was closer to the pillar than the other one. So what ends up happening is it's all just all over the place now. Just a big sloppy pull. To be fair, it's not that bad, but I definitely could have had like higher threat on the casters earlier on, which would have made the pull a bit smoother, but not too bad overall. You see, because of that, the timing on the slows is a bit off, and I have to sit there and make sure I'm in the middle of that blizzard for it to work properly. I take quite a bit of damage doing that. But, you know, for the most part after that, pretty straightforward kiting. And what gets interesting here is that when these ravaged cadavers die, they can spawn broken cadavers, which hit you really, really hard. You pretty much have to kill them instantly, because 900 damage unmitigated is just, that's going to wreck you. Up ahead, we got a similar pull. By now, you probably have a gist of how these work, so I'm going to skip a lot of packs and just show you specifically some interesting spots. And yes, always keep an eye out for eyes, by the way. But the spot up ahead here is just right next to this pillar. Probably the easiest way to pull this pack instead of trying to LOS all the way back or something. You could also just run in on the pack, but I always like to use the pillars, especially because you can see they run through them, and it just makes it real clean and easy. So after the next standard pull, there's one that involves a courier near a post box. And I always opt to skip this one. I was really considering it on this particular run. But the guy does like a snap kick that stuns you and knocks you down. It's just really dangerous and not worth the effort. After that, you've got a bunch more of the same pulls. This place is basically like the equivalent of farming Western Plaguelands, except you get to work in elites and you don't have to worry about respawns. You can just reset the dungeon yourself. There's just so many mobs that I really like this place just for hard farming. And once you've gotten the standard pull down, there's pretty much only a couple little things to think about. So for instance, the plague ghouls are pretty easy, I would say, once you have like some decent gear. You know, they hit hard, they hit fast, but they're kiteable. They do that in rage and you can just run away. Like, it's not too bad overall. Just make sure that you're smart with them. I don't like to pull more than 3 at a time because every now and then they can kind of flurry you and just take you down real quick. And I'm actually using Devotion Aura here, which I don't normally do a lot, but on these particular guys, it just kind of works nicely for them. So aside from the rare spawns, you can also work the Unforgiven into your route. We're literally just doing a big loop all the way to like the humans on live side, taking that to the right side all the way over to undead and just pulling every single mob. It's a lot of farm in this place. Being able to work in this one boss is sort of like an icing on the cake. He's a really easy boss, honestly, easier than like the abominations that you're going to deal with and all the other stuff. He does kind of seem to dodge a lot. He's got pretty high avoidance, but even in this clip, I'm hitting him pretty frequently, like way more than usual. And what's funny about this particular clip too is that we have helped so many people farm this particular helmet and it almost never drops. It's like always the shoulders that he drops or some garbage, and it just happens to drop, so I snag it for my red set. Just amazing odds. And there's a couple ghouls up ahead just to show you a 3 pull of them real quick. It's a little rougher than the 2 pull, but nothing that you really can't handle if you're, you know, doing this properly the whole time. Another standard pull after that, and then we get to a courtyard that has quite a few mobs around it. You have some options for multiple pulls, but I pretty much just keep it to 1 group at a time. Now, right here, I wanted to try something new, which was I wanted to see if we could line of sight on this fountain. And I can tell you right now, you're about to find out too that it does not work. So don't bother doing this. I'll save you the trouble. Pretty awful, actually. We're able to recover this pull just by, you know, brute forcing our way through it, but not, yeah, not great. So one more little trial and error thing here. I wanted to see if we could actually 2-man this particular boss, the key boss, and the answer is no. He's pretty rough. I thought maybe he was kiteable. I never actually tried in the past because I was just trying to burn him down with a 5-man. But no, you can't really kite him. He's hard to heal through. Maybe we could have pulled it off if I was better or something like that, but nah. 3-man would definitely be doable, and you can see we actually got pretty close. So there's definitely like mistakes on this fight that we could have fixed and probably gotten him down. But is it worth the effort to reward ratio? Nah, not really either. And speaking of 3-man, that really is the best way to do these runs, because if you noticed, the only real issue we had this entire time on our 2-mans was that the elites themselves take a little longer to kill. This makes the run take longer overall, makes the pulls a little more riskier. If you have a second DPS with you, you're going to be able to really plow through this run a lot easier, make way less mistakes. It's just free as hell, honestly, with 3 people. You do not need a healer. Another DPS is all you need to really get it going. The one advantage of you being a paladin, the only time you might think about wanting a healer is for this humanoid section here, which I have 2-manned with my mage buddy, but it's not, I would never probably do it again. It's not worth it. With 3 people though, definitely worth. Pretty good orb farm overall. And while you might think it's better to just do a 5-man or something, the other advantage of having just 3 people is if you're all friends and an epic drops, I mean, that's just free money for everyone. You don't have to worry about some 4th or 5th person taking it and then you don't even see that change. So anyway, I highly recommend coming here if you're bored and looking for something to farm. Go befriend some people. Go have a good time. Speaking of which, in the meantime, have a good one.